Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your attendance. We're going to spend a couple of minutes allowing other attendees to join in, so please be patient with us. Thank you. Welcome once again, everyone. Thank you for joining the NAAIA National Agent Engagement Roundtable discussion, our third one. We thank you for attending and being part of this. We're just giving everyone a minute here to get settled, come on in, and get prepared for our discussion. Great. Let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon once again. Thank you for joining again the NAAIA National Agent Engagement Roundtable discussion, part 3. How are you performing? Key performance indicators for the Black agent. My name is Ngozi Anaji, and I am the co-chair of the Agent Engagement Committee on the National Board. Again, welcome. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. So to start off, key performance indicators as defined are quantifiable measures used to evaluate the success of an organization in meeting objectives for performance. Specific to the insurance industry, trade organizations like the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of America, better known as the Big I, for years has been publishing benchmark and key performance indicators for agents and brokers that look at profitability, growth, and success of their membership. However, knowing that a small population of their agents are Black agents, the question is how reflective and how relative are those benchmarks and key performance indicators to a population of agents that are adequately represented? So today's discussion will explore that question. We'll explore the importance and the relevance to the Black agent and how we can leverage these key performance indicators potentially to be successful in this industry. Leading our discussion today is my friend, Dr. Leroy Nunnery. Dr. Nunnery, for over 40 years, has been involved in a variety of different industries, including corporate banking and capital markets, higher education, professional sports, and has been involved in a family-owned business, electrical contracting business in the New Jersey area. But most important and favorite to him is the insurance industry, where he's been doing a lot of work recently over the last few years. However, in 2007, he founded Pulse Ultra, a strategic advisory firm that focuses on turnarounds and transformations, growth and innovation planning, resource development, talent development, governance training, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. As I indicated, Dr. Nunnery has been doing a lot of work recently in the insurance industry, most notably commissioned by the Marsh companies to author a groundbreaking demographic and psychographic study called The Journey of the African American Insurance Professional, Past and Present, which has been distributed industry-wide and referenced and notated in various different settings. So welcome, my friend. Thank you for being here today. I'm turning the mic over to you.
Thank you, Ngozi. Good afternoon, everybody. Really glad to be here and to be associated with you, particularly Ngozi and others. Since getting involved in the insurance industry, I'm still a novice, but I must tell you, I found friends, associates, business partners, and I only wish I had this opportunity way back when I started my trek. Key performance indicators sounds like it's a boring issue. It's all about numbers and ratios and so on, but actually it can be the dashboard for running a successful business. And Ghazi alluded to the fact that I've been associated with a family-owned contracting business in North Jersey, actually since 1969, when my father, God rest his soul, started that business. And he was a phenomenal electrician, but just okay in terms of the business side, managing inventory, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and so on. And it led to some serious financial problems, which we tried to resolve by kind of resuscitating the business out of bankruptcy. And the reason I'm telling you all of this is that the numbers do matter. Having a dashboard that you can rely upon, that you can go to, really matters. So kind of segueing to this particular session, it's important that we talk about not only how independent agents are faring, but also where they can go in terms of the future. And we've got two particularly well-versed experts, Steve Bradley and Patience Noah. They're going to introduce themselves in a second. A third panelist, Anthony Freeman, is not going to join us. We just found out he had some severe health issues, so we wish the best for him and his family as he goes through that. I'm going to share something with you, though, for to get us going. Hopefully you can see this slide, the importance of African-American insurance agents. For example, someone like Abraham Lincoln Lewis, who in 1901, think about that, became Florida's first African-American millionaire, the great-grandfather to Janetta Cole. Some of you may have even gone to school at Spelman or Bennett. That's her lineage. And he not only started the Afro-American Life Insurance Company in Jacksonville, Florida, which became a behemoth then, but he also bought this landmass, 200 acres in Nassau County, Florida, called American Beach. And American Beach became the vacation spot for people like Cab Calloway, Ray Charles, and the godfather of soul, James Brown. There's some other news here. Let's see if I can get this to advance. There we go. Back in the 60s, insurance agents were seen as part of the advance, the vanguard, to get to sew together economic development, economic rights with civil rights. So John H. Johnson, whom I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know, the publisher of Ebony, Jet magazine, and so on, not only excelled in the media business, but he was also a board member for Supreme Liberty Life Insurance Company in Chicago. Probably didn't know that. In this issue of May 1965, and you see who's on the cover, Martin and Coretta and Joseph Lowery and Ralph David Abernathy and others, you see, and Rosa Parks, you see the impact of the March on Montgomery. And inside that very issue was this ad for Equitable Life, which was recruiting African Americans to join their company, along with Mutual New York and New York Life, to become part of this upward mobility of agents. Now, each of those companies also had some very interesting issues in terms of redlining, the way they set premiums and so on. But this insurance has had this very interesting and integral part in the development of African-American history in this country. And it's one of the things that I try to bring out in all my presentations. And then lastly, you'll see here on the screen, an interesting man, Cyrilla McSween, who has since passed on, emanated to the US from Panama on a track scholarship to the University of Illinois, spoke no English when he got here, but because of his speed and his endurance became a member of not only the Panamanian Central American Olympics team, but also ran track for the University of Illinois, studied economics there, and was recommended by a professor in 1957 to interview with New York Life. He interviews, they give him a job, And then they find out that McSween was not an Irish name. So they retract the offer. He hitchhiked to New York to sit in the office of the president of New York Life to demand that he get his job back. And when he finally got his hearing, the president says, "Well, we normally don't hire people of color." They didn't call them that; it was colored people, right? And he said, "What? Do you realize how much business you're leaving on the table?" When they finally give him his job, he goes back to Illinois, and for 26 years in a row, this agent became a member of the $1 Million Roundtable, along with these others that you see on the screen. Theodore Tillman from Philadelphia, and Leonard Lanford Spraggins from Chicago. Not only was McSween a phenomenal agent, but when he sold his business, he ended up buying 13 McDonald's franchises in Chicago, some of the best known franchises in the country, parlays that money into other businesses, and became a supporter of a young man who said, "I have aspirations to be president." That young man was Barack Hussein Obama. And unfortunately, McSween died a day or so before Obama was actually won the election. The reason I bring that history out is because it's really important that we start to understand the power of our respective history. And with that, I'm going to turn the introductions on. First to Steve Bradley, who's become a friend and somebody who I greatly respect. Steve, why don't you give the audience some idea of who you are and your extent in the insurance business?
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this webinar today. As mentioned, my name is Stephen Scott Bradley. I started in the business in 1981 through a summer internship program through Inroads, where I worked for Continental Insurance Company. So I had the privilege of working for Continental for 4 years. And then I had opportunity to study abroad. When I came back, Continental offered me a position in New York City, working in their national brokerage division. From Continental, in their commercial underwriting, I transferred to Hanover Insurance Company in Piscataway, and then I worked for Cigna in Ballard-Kenwood. When I worked for Cigna in Ballard-Kenwood, one of the agents I was responsible for was Watlington and Cooper. At the time, was one of the largest and oldest African-Americanly owned commercial insurance brokerage firms in the tri-state area. And that was my introduction to outside of the commercial underwriting to actually seeing what it's like to own your own agency. And after we got brought out 20 years ago, I started my own commercial insurance firm, and we do strictly commercial insurance in the tri-state area.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. And now we'll go to Patience Noah. Patience, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Absolutely. Great.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Patience Noah, and I am the owner of Patience Noah Insurance Agency. I opened my agency back, December of 2019. So I'm fairly new to being an agency owner. But prior to that, I have been in the industry since I graduated in 2013. And I've worked for Hanover, companies like Hanover, and I've worked for Travelers and other insurance agencies as well. So I have experiences from the carrier side of things, and then I also have the experience from the agency side of things. And after some years of being in the industry, I decided, hey, I think I know what to do as an agent, and I also know what to do, from the carrier's perspective. So maybe it's time for me to start my own agency and see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, at least I have the experience. But if it does work out, then, great, I can continue that and move on and help other young African Americans that are looking to come onto the agency side of things. So that's how I got in the business.
Wonderful. And Ghazi, why don't you tell us about your business? You got you got your hand in a lot of pies, but I think the folks need to hear more about what you've done with ACO.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm a kind of a stand-in, but definitely and happy to be a part of this conversation. So those who don't know me, I am Ngozi Anaji. I own my own agency, similar to my peers here on the panel. But like Stephen and Patience started off kind of on the other side of the house, underwriting. I've been in brokerage. But my desire to leave legacy became true and apparent about 4 years ago. And so decided at that point to start my own agency, but really focus on my Black community, educating my Black community, not only about the tools of insurance around building wealth, but also as a career, as a platform. It had been good to me 20 years prior, and definitely wanted to see the increased representation. But hence, what Dr. Nunnery is alluding to is, being able to engage and be a part of an industry that is not, fully representing society and representing the needs of our people. I've been working towards increasing that representation and started my own recruiting firm, which it's interesting in the scope of, as we talk about benchmarking and KPIs and metrics and how organizations look at success, right? And don't include kind of D&I in those fundamental kind of metrics, financial quantitative metrics. And so looking through this organization that I've built to do that, to make it a staple as how they measure performance and how they measure success.
Wonderful. So let me ask, Steve, I'll start with you and then Patience and Ngozi. What, in this unique time, COVID-19, social and political uncertainty, an economic decline, depending on how you look at it, what's your growth strategy? I mean, how are you strategically planning to grow? Or are you just holding on right now to get through this?
I mean,
Steve, we'll start with you.
One of the goals as far as growth is Bradley & Bradley's been in existence for over 20 years. So our theme and our mantra has always been relationship building is number one. So that's something we've always tried to focus in on is our relationships is key. And oh, by the way, we sell commercial insurance. So it's never been commercial insurance and then relationships. So as a result of that, our retention level is like 95%. Even though the market's hardening and prices is going up, I've been very successful in retaining most of my book clients to date. So as far as growth, I think trusting and being a secure and trusted advisor has been one of my key elements in retaining my book of business and not just being an insurance broker, focus on pricing. And I think that's the formula to success and having continuous growth is being a trusted advisor and not just being price sensitive. So I think that's the reason why I've been in business for 20 years.
I love it. And so being able to focus on those connections to the folks who are coming to you.
Exactly.
And the reason why that's important.
Even like small things like claims, still going out. If one of your clients has a large claim, I had a claim that had recently had some flood damage. And I was there, I didn't have to, the claimant just went out, but just being visible like that. And that cements those relationships. And people value that you were there, walking through the claim process with them versus just collecting a check once a year. And I think that tends to work to your favor when the market is unstable like it is today.
Interesting. Patience, how about you? What's your strategy as you navigate through this time?
Yeah, this is an interesting time to have opened my business. And I am not going to lie, back in March, I always question myself if this was the right move at the time, because being an agent for about 3 months and then boom, we have a pandemic, it definitely threw a wrench into my plans, but I saw it as an opportunity to build my brand, right? And I saw it as an opportunity to get my name out there because I knew around this time, people are sitting at home with not much to do. So I took the opportunity to really make sure that everyone was seeing a strong brand coming from me, so that whenever you look at my LinkedIn, my Instagram, or my Facebook profile, whatever images I was putting out there is an image that will be stuck in your mind. And the way that I understood was this is not going to last forever. So the positioning of myself is to make sure that after the pandemic that I would be the go-to person. And another thing too that I've been doing is whenever I have an encounter with somebody, is making sure that they know that I am an insurance agent. So basically wearing my insurance hat no matter where I go, and asking for referrals, not being afraid to ask for referrals. And also, although I came on in December, I took on a book of business from a prior agent. So another thing too that I do is reaching out to those existing book of business, whether it's renewal reviews or whomever I'm assisting with an issue that they have, making sure that they understand that I provide other services that they may not currently have with me, and just making sure that I establish a strong relationship with people around this time.
So you really try to fill that void
Yes,
by being present.
correct.
And guys, I'm going to turn to you for kind of the next question. I want everybody to weigh in on client retention. Steve mentioned it. And Ghazi, patience is building into it. So we know client retention is this key barometer, right? Because obviously without clients, even in the consulting practice, you might as well stay home. Can you highlight some triumphs, some of the wins you've had, and maybe also talk about some challenges you've encountered in terms of client retention?
So I think for me, I'm going to speak specifically around staying with kind of this COVID area, because I think it's important, right? I mean, we did do a roundtable early on, our first roundtable that really focused on Black agents in this crisis. But I think it's important to highlight, especially around client retention, that technology can be a benefit and can be a detriment when you're in crisis. And I think that's one thing that I've learned around how to manage technology and what this new norm looks like for us, and how not only how to leverage it, but if leveraged too much, what it could potentially do to client relationships. I think both Stephen and Patience highlight the fact that insurance is still a very relationship-driven business, not only internally, meaning within corporations or whatnot, but also externally when you're dealing with your clients. And I think sometimes, even though, technology makes things more efficient and more effective at times, you cannot lose that personal touch in that relationship. And so I think during COVID, and as I think about kind of the lessons learned and the challenges I had, I think I became too reliant on the technology, right? Because I couldn't engage with people. But sometimes just picking up the phone, right? I mean, I know we have video conferencing, and a number of my clients were challenged by the video conferencing, right? Because they had never used it before. And so, even just simply picking up the phone, but I got a house full of teenagers too, right? So I'm too used to texting, I'm used to, social media, but that became a barrier for me in the engagement of some of my older clients or some of my clients who didn't have that technology savviness. But then in addition to that, what I was able to do as far as client retention and engagement is some of my younger clients, we didn't miss a beat, right? We were still engaging. They could still reach out to me. So it's really knowing about when to leverage technology and when not to. And I think COVID exposed a lot of that for a lot of people who, whether they were prepared or not prepared, but realized that this new norm was going to be something very different. And it's not changing anytime soon. We haven't seen major movement around that, especially in our industry space. So I think for me, those are, again, technology benefit and barrier on both fronts.
Interesting. Either Steve or Patience, what would you say about some triumphs or some challenges to the retention issue?
Yeah, I'll get started. So for me, the fact that I haven't been in the business for about for a year now. Okay, so I would say that being transparent, when all of this started, I think I had a challenge with utilizing technology, even though I'm a millennial and everybody would think, this is something that I would get into the swing of things. And I think the surprise of the pandemic threw me off my feet. And it took me a little while to get into the groove of things and really hone in on the Zoom usage and really utilizing technology to my benefit, and really making sure that this is something that it shouldn't be something that should stop me dead in my tracks from running my agency. So after some months, I thought about it, and for me, because I'm an exclusive agent, our primary focus is with educators, right? So we were used to going into the schools and setting up tables and talking to teachers. And we were in their face, visiting their homes, wherever they wanted to meet. And then all of a sudden, boom, we don't have that anymore. And of course, with teachers, they were already utilizing Zoom. So I sort of, in the beginning, I was getting in my own way by thinking, okay, well, maybe they have a lot of Zoom workshops going on. So adding my Zoom workshop to it will probably be too much on them. So I was preventing myself from really reaching out and really going after what I wanted. So after some time, I told myself, hey, patience, I mean, they're probably getting 1,000 emails too. I mean, your email could be a part of that list. Don't stop yourself. I mean, reach out to them. Don't speak for your clients. Let your clients tell you what they want, and don't let them tell you no. Yeah. So I had to tell myself that. And even reaching out to customers in the beginning, I would have the fear of people saying no to me, right? Because I would sit down and think about, okay, well, this person might say no, so let me try this person, without even reaching out to those people. So I had to give myself a pep talk and tell myself, don't be the one to say no for somebody. Let them say no to you. And no right now doesn't mean no forever, right? You're in this business for the long haul, right? They may not need your services today, but they may need it next year, the year after, or a family member of theirs might need your service. So whenever I got on a call with somebody, or whenever I was interacting with somebody, I made sure that I asked for referrals, and I made sure that I utilized the Zoom calls. Those that were not comfortable with Zoom, we would do their reviews on by phone. So whichever was comfortable for them, that was the approach that I was taking, versus me deciding for them what was comfortable for them.
Excellent, excellent. Steve, do you want to respond, or?
Sure. As far as technology is concerned, I mean, I deal with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and most of them was the first to leave their offices. So it's been working out really convenient as far as being responsive. If I get an email 7 to 8 o'clock at night, I always respond to it, and trying to differentiate yourself from your competitors. So I think, you know, being on top of your game as far as customer service is crucial during this COVID-19 times, because everybody needs the attention and everybody's under a lot of pressure. So when they call their insurance broker, they need an answer. It's not, oh, I wonder how's things with my insurance. Usually it's a crisis moment. So just trying to be extra on your game as far as customer service, and technology enhances that. But as far as any bad experiences, you know, it's just interesting to hear patients say her level's uncomfortable, because I'm over 50. So, you know, it was a learning curve for me too. So I don't feel bad now.
Do you all feel that clients are more or less inclined to act given the uncertainties they face? Do you find that they're holding on, saying, you know, hey, thank you for the information, let me move on? Or, you know, just a brief response to that.
I mean, again, my retention level is like 95%. So I'm sure my competitors are calling, but I think in this challenging moments and uncertainty, a lot of people tend to not want to make their risk with bringing a new broker into the table, even if your rates might be competitive. It's like, well, I know that I can depend on this person. So it's been working to my favor up until this point.
Gotcha.
I got a little bit of a different experience. I mean, I guess, you know, my new business went up as a result. And that's, I think, because not only did you have COVID, but you had the racial injustice, and people were really seeking out Black agents, but not only seeking them out, finding the time to research them, right? Because now you're, you know, these were like, we're sitting at home, you know, you're on social media every day, all day, right? Probably should be working, but anyway, you're on there. And you're able to do that extra research where maybe you hadn't before. And I think I was able to get an uptick in new business because there were people who were intentional about doing business with a Black agent versus not.
Great.
Yeah, and I think for me, sorry to cut you off, but for me, I had a little bit of a different experience, and I definitely felt like people were holding back, and I think it was where I had to go back and sort of figure out, patients, what are you doing wrong, right? and figure out, okay, what approach are you taking that is not yielding the results that you want? And I needed to go and really sit down and have a talk with myself. Are you really explaining it to the point where this is something that they need at this time, right? Versus, because again, there are millions of people that are reaching out to them around this time of the year. So what sets you apart from them? What makes you different from them? So I needed to make that differentiation so that whenever I got on the phone with somebody, it wouldn't be, oh, let me call you back later, or oh, let me do this, let me do that. So once I got I answered that question for myself, it was a little bit easier for me to get people to come with me, to come with my agency.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from the three of you is this issue around relationship building, retention being a critical measurement and outcome of that. Don't speak for your clients. I love that language. And differentiation, the speed at which you respond, the way that you respond. I will tell you, I have an African-American insurance agent. They may not be on the line right now. I haven't heard a word from that individual as late as the renewal period, which was November. And that person doesn't know if only if I don't pay my premium on time do I hear from that person. And so I'm about to,
is this commercial or individual?
Commercial. This is my commercial. This is my commercial for my consulting practice. And the only reason I'm putting it out there is that
follow up with you, Dr.
I know you. I knew you would. But seriously, folks, this is really important that you realize how. First of all, for those of us who are not insurance professionals, reading a policy in and of itself is a daunting task. We're relying on you to be the experts, the community resource, but also an advisor. So for this person never to pick up the phone and say, how's it going? What can I do for you? Here's what I'm seeing, means that I'm walking into everything blind. Let's move on. We've got a few minutes more, and I want to make sure we invite the audience to send in questions either in the chat or the Q&A. You know, we've talked a lot about technology because it's an essential part of sustaining and building an agency. How are you making your investments in technology? Is it all just kind of free platforms, or are you using certain insurtech models? Because I see a lot of that in the space: artificial intelligence, data analytics, predictive models. So is any of that filtering in? And is that something that Black agencies ought to be doing more of? And Ngazi, let me go to you, then Patience, then Steve.
Yeah, I think insurtech is a funny thing. You know, I mean, I think in its recent years, carriers and insurance companies have benefited a great deal, you know, by leveraging insurtech and artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things. I don't know how functional some of those things are for the independent agent, right? Like the application of insurtech at our level, you know, I'm sure there's some things that, you know, if we think hard, we can kind of apply them, right, to create a better experience for our customers. But most of the times what's happening is that insurtech platform, AI, whatever, is being implemented such that it doesn't leave room for the agent, right? We find ourselves trying to figure out what our role is as those relationships between the carrier and the client become more and more direct. So, you know, personally within my agency, I've been looking to invest more in technology that will reveal some opportunities for me to create a better experience for my clients. You know, I know AIG just came out with a platform where even from a rating basis, right, it allows me to take in, you know, IoT information as part of the underwriting process, right, to help differentiate myself as an agent producing a product that is kind of more, you know, apt to that versus, you know, maybe the Hartford that doesn't. So I can, you know, brag and talk about kind of some of the platforms I'm using as an agent, but I've yet to see something that really gets to the crux of me as an agent, changing the experience of my client through insurtech. But what I will say, you know, about insurtech as well is there's always opportunity, right? All you need is an idea, right? To kind of, and you expand upon that. But I know the insurtech community itself is looking for opportunities to get into the side of the house, right? And not necessarily, we're not talking about the Willises, the Marshes, and all those large firms. We're talking about the independent agent. How do you help the independent agent? So I'm scratching my head. I know there's a need for the investment in technology, but I definitely would like to see opportunities around utilizing InsurTech more directly with my client base.
Very interesting. Patience, how about you? Given your
Yes.
relationship with Hanover, yeah. I mean, Horace Mann, sorry.
Yeah, so Horace Mann has done a good job at really providing the agents with what they need during this time. Well, at least with the essentials of what they need around this time. I know prior to this whole thing, we were not, video conferencing was not a capability that we used to utilize, and it was something that they brought on board right away. So for me, most of investments in technology comes from Horace Mann. So I'm not at the position yet where I'm putting my own investment into it. So it makes things a little bit easier for me. So I do focus on those free platforms, like the social media platforms, to make sure that I build a stronger brand.
Interesting. And are you using any type of search engine optimization, like Google stats, that kind of thing, to track who's seeing you, who's following through? Are you doing any of that work?
Yes, so we have a platform that they offer us to post our social media posts through. So it tells you the engagement level that you have through each platform. So that helps you figure out where you're getting the most engagement and where you should be putting most of your energy. So that's been helpful for me as well, because I definitely do utilize social media. So that's been helpful for me.
Beautiful. Steve, you've got an established 2-decade agency. I'm sure things have changed since when you got started. How are you making investments in technology to help your business grow?
I mean, most of my investments in technology is freelancing. My staff, they all work out of their home. They work with a laptop. We have a software that we use and communicate. But I mean, we have a Google site and things of that nature, but we tend to be, again, I'm old fashioned. I tend to focus on relationships. So I'm not big on doing a lot of social media at this point in my career. And again, my client base is commercial. So I'm not going after the homeowners or auto. 99% of my clients are all commercial accounts.
Gotcha. All right. We got a question here, Ngazi, from Hadassah, who's asking, what advice do you have on prospecting during this time? And she's got 9 years in the industry, but new to the current area. So what's worked in terms of prospecting? Anybody want to respond to that?
I mean, prospecting for me has been being involved civically and politically, getting your brand out there, working on nonprofits, boards, volunteering, and getting to know people. And then it's, oh, by the way, I do commercial insurance. Even during this COVID-19, participating in workshops and webinars where you get 2 minutes to talk about your brand. So using that 2 minutes for your introduction to talk about Bradley and Bradley, and we're commercial insurance brokers, and participating in them webinars is free advertisements. And I've been taking advantage of a lot of those events. And also I chair the African American Chamber, which allows me to be around business owners. I don't get compensated, but I build my brand and, meet prospective clients. So that's always been effective for me.
Well, Steve, I also know that, I want to go to patients next. If I go to certain social settings, there's a group of business people and lawyers like the Sunday Breakfast Club and these other entities. I'll see Steve Bradley there and not only working, but socializing. And I think that's a big part of this. I know it doesn't seem like it's a KPI, but it is. How many centers of influence are you a part of? Who comes to you as an expert? But also, it's not even so much whom do you know, but who knows you, right? Who knows that you are doing these things and what you can do to promote that? So Patience, how about you to Hadassah's question about prospecting? Can you give us some bullet points? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with everyone. Definitely utilize your center of influence. Some of the things that I've been doing, just like Steve, is I recently joined the Chamber of Commerce in the local community that I'm stationed in. For some of you that don't know about Horace Mann, they give you a school district that you're responsible for, and you can market within that school district. So what I did was join the Chamber of Commerce for my biggest school district. And that has opened so many doors to so many of the schools that I was, scratching my head on how can I get into this district and how can I get into this school. The minute I joined that board, it was like, oh, we know the superintendent. Oh, we can introduce you to her. We can introduce you to this principal and that principal. So that has opened so many doors for me that going into this coming school year, I can utilize those relationships that I've established. And another thing too is get involved in your community, right? I know right now we're not going to parties or anything like that, but if there's a Zoom call, get on that call. Like Steve said, even if it's 5 minutes and you're talking about your business, if they're having an event, even if it's $20 that you're donating or $25 that you're donating for a gift card, and them putting your logo on their flyer, that's visibility. That's you building a brand, and the community will get to know who you are. And after time, or as time goes on, your brand will be recognized within the community. So definitely utilize your community and get yourself out there. And again, another thing too that I've been doing is reaching out to people that are doing, there's many people that are doing Facebook Live these days, right? So I'm reaching out to them, hey, this is what I know about insurance. Can I be a part of your next program, right? Getting yourself out there and getting your name out there is very important around this time.
We got a number of great questions here. And guys, I'm going to go to another one Thomas raised. Is anyone experiencing challenges with carrier appointments given their minimum premium volume thresholds? Because it makes it harder for a smaller agency to penetrate the market. So I know you and I talk a lot about this, about carrier appointments, because that is a key barometer of success. What would you say to that in terms of the challenges or ways to overcome those challenges?
I think what I'm starting to see, in particularly as a result of BLM, right, is that a number of carriers are now willing to have the conversation about being more strategic about their representation in the distribution space and really opening up their carrier appointment process so that it incorporates not only just, here are here's our line in the sand, you have to have certain, written premium, you have to do this, but, having a conversation about, what does growth look over time? Where's your area of focus? Is it a demographic or a book of business that we don't currently have access to or haven't grown in? And I think they're being more open to those conversations and dropping those minimum premiums, and I think organizations like NAAIA should be a part of those type of discussions, right? Because again, as we represent African Americans, Black people in the insurance industry, we should be opening up those doors as to having conversations with carriers about those minimum premiums. But if nothing else, also, I think there's an opportunity for carriers to mentor and coach, new agents owners as to, what they need to do to get to the point that they can meet those appointments or get to those, minimum premium levels. Because I think that's important too. I mean, you develop and grow an agent and they'll be loyal for life, right? You get that appointment and then you'll represent that for life. So I think there's a lot more conversation that is going on today than it has been historically. So, Thomas, I'd say your ear to the ground because there's some things NAAIA is working on as we speak around establishing those carrier appointments for some global carriers where agents historically hadn't had that opportunity.
Yeah. Is anybody on the panel a member of the $1 Million Roundtable? Dennis wants to know, and if so, is that any value to your practice? $1 Million Roundtable, no one? Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm at that age where I'm getting Medicare calls. Hard to believe. And I actually talked to an agent here in the Philadelphia area last night, an African-American female, owner of a business, owner of an agency for, I think she said 7+ years. And the first thing that caught my eye amidst all the clutter, all the phone calls I get, unsolicited mailings, was the fact that she's got $1 Million Roundtable on her card. And when I looked her up and so she was African-American, I called her. And it does mean something, but the biggest thing is that she responded right away and said, let me walk you through the process, because as I said, I don't know part A, B, C. I didn't realize how many parts there were until I started talking to her. Somebody else asked, how do you feel about adding online application and rating software to property and casualty insurance? Anybody want to tackle that?
So adding it, meaning agents, I'm just curious, agents doing the online rating and whatnot?
It's not clear. The question is just about
Okay.
how do you feel about adding, I guess, as a front end for, for qualifying or confirming clients, signing them on, binding them.
I'll let Stephen respond, but just want to say, I mean, right now the functionality around online rating for commercial lines platforms is there already, exists today. The question then becomes, online rating as it relates to the client, right? How does the client get access? Again, there are some platforms that already offer that today, where you can get E&O coverage, Hiscox, you can get E&O coverage for your business by going directly through their online platform, and literally in 5 minutes, you can have a policy. So it's there, it's available. And so that's where I'm saying, where I think InsurTech technology is finding a way, carriers are finding a way to get direct access to our client base. So we have to start to figure out, even though there is that direct access, what do we do to differentiate ourselves as agents and brokers and advisors and consultants? So to Steve's point earlier, I think this is where you start, relationships are still important, right? But, that online rating platform can't tell you when you might need to change coverage, because now you got new operations and you hired a new employee, right? And so I think we need to start to create more value around that than around getting you the cheapest price, right? So.
And again, I mean, everything you say, I say ditto too. But again, I think that's where you have to build on that relationship and keep your brand out there. I mean, something that Bradley and Bradley does is we try to be philanthropic. So our customers, when they have events, we try to buy ads, we try to buy tables. So again, you see where your commission money is going towards. And I'm just one of those people that always brings that conversation up, how much we invest in our community, and I think that makes the difference between you're buying something the cheapest price, but you're not putting back into the community. And then those gray areas when insurance comes up, the claim comes up or endorsement comes up, and you don't have anybody to talk to except emailing to a 1-800 number or email address. And that's just something that I've just tried to pride myself on, is realizing that's that relationship value-added service you get dealing with Bradley and Bradley.
Interesting. Patience, just take a minute, because we were running out of time, and I want to get some other questions. You gave us a description the other day about what you do for teachers. I think it's a great example of how you solidified that knowledge and data within a relationship approach. Tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely. The model that we have, at my agency, and is a model that I had prior to joining Horace Mann, is that, teachers are the most important group of people in our community, and they don't get the attention that they deserve. So that was what really pushed me to work for Horace Mann, or to partner with Horace Mann and start my agency. So when I'm going into these schools to meet up, to establish a relationship with a principal, one of the things that I do is I have these candy jars that I fill with candy, apple candy jars, and I have 2 colors. I have the red and the green color apple candy jar that I take to a secretary. And literally once I walk in front of their office and give them that candy, it just put a huge smile on their face. And that brings me so much joy. And you might think that these little things don't make a difference. They do, because teachers are not hard to please, right? So another thing too that I did this past Teachers Appreciation was I gave out $25 gift cards to some of the teachers that are part of my book of business, and just to appreciate them and tell them, hey, thank you for all you do. Same thing with the principals as well. You may think that, okay, well, it's just, $25, but those $25 can go a long way. You may think it's just a random candy jar, but that candy jar, another teacher might walk and see that candy jar at their desk, right? And say, hey, where did you get that? Oh, it's from patients. So it carries, it goes around into the schools, and is a unique approach that I picked. I mean, there are many ideas that, I had come up with over the short amount of time I've been with Horace Mann that eventually I would implement. But so far I've seen that, the Amazon gift card and the candy jar has been working for me so far. So, I'm sticking with that for the meantime until everything gets better and I can implement more ideas within the community. But it's really, really important to me that I make my teachers feel appreciated and make them feel like somebody cares about them when I walk into their doors, when I walk into their homes.
Well, I was kidding patients yesterday that I'm going to send her my address. I'm expecting to see both color candy jars here soon, assuming that the post office is still operable, but that's a whole nother issue. Okay, we got two more questions before we kind of give it to a close. Is one issue here, and I want to start, Steve, with you particularly. Sabrina asked, are there thoughts on what data is relevant to making decisions around succession choices for your agencies? I mean, you have, I believe, one of your offspring working for you.
Yes.
This whole idea of building legacy so that we're not like some of these other agents who historically were important, but their businesses no longer exist. So what data, how are you planning for that legacy build? I'll start with you, and then we'll have Ghazi and Patience chime in.
I mean, and again, I think that's something as far as legacy building and wealth building in our family, something that as African Americans, we're guilty of not being very responsible and being good stewards. And again, we have business in the Philadelphia regions that's been around 40, 50 years. And when the principals die, the firm is no longer in existence.
Right.
Where this firm could have been one of the major philanthropic engines in the region, summer internships, where people work for this firm and then they got their training and then they went off to corporations. So, that's just very important to me as far as legacy building and that tradition and how do we create wealth. So data that's important is having a good banking relationships is crucial. Having a good relationship with your CPA and having a good relationships with your attorney. Every 4 or 5 years ago, I always get my firm, monitorized to see how much it's worth, to see whether now's a good point. Because I'm at that point in my career where, if somebody made a good offer, I would entertain it. So, that's very important that as African Americans, we continue to realize we're building something that we can pass on to the next generation. And whether my daughter decides she wants to stay in that business, but at least I can be able to give her a large check and say, go off and do whatever you want. But if we don't manage it properly and keep the financials in order and have a good relationship with that banking, then next thing you know, we're at a point where we die and the company's doesn't have any value to it. So legacy building is crucial.
Well, and I point out before the others respond, even our family business started 51, 52 years ago. My brother now runs a business. I'm a major shareholder in the business. My father did everything he could. He put us through college and all of that. The problem was without a business plan and a sense of what's the next step, you really are flying blind in some ways. And Black folks particularly don't like to talk about what the end might be. Exactly. Right? We don't like to talk about insurance. We don't like to talk about the future. God's going to take care of us, and he will, she will. But the challenge is you've got to plan forward. When you look at these businesses that have been successful for decades, they've had a succession plan. They've understood how, and if that does not work, they have a contingency. And I think sometimes we get caught on not thinking forward enough and figure out not only how to monetize, but how to value the business. I would encourage all of you on the line to look at Marshberry, look at Reagan Consulting. There's some other entities that do a lot of writing about how to value your agency. Do that. Think about your business, even if you're an army of one, as an important value that you should ultimately find out its worth. Patience, how about you? And Ghazi, will come to you for a wrap up on that question. Patience, how about you in terms of legacy building? A little early, right?
In terms of legacy building, one of the mentality that I came into this business with is think about the end goal, right? Think about the end from the beginning. And one of the things that my prior experiences had taught me was it gave me the opportunity. When I was at Travelers, I was a sales executive. So it gave me an opportunity to interact with agencies, right? So I got to see what good agencies are doing. I got to see what under the agencies that were underperforming, what were the things that they were doing wrong. So I had those experiences. So coming into owning my own agency, I knew from the beginning, or I know what to do. And one of the things that's very important is building a profitable book of business from the beginning, not waiting until 3 years from now before I start cleaning up my book of business. And building a profitable book of business may mean that I might have to turn down a customer. Well, the blessings that we have in Massachusetts is that we can tell from in the registry, we can see what policy canceled and the reason for your policy being canceled. Now, if I go through the registry and I see that your policy has been canceled for, I think 3 times in 1 year, that's a business I have to really consider. Do I really want this person in my agency? Someone that's just, that only wants an auto policy for me, I have to consider, is this really the type of person that I want? And I ask you, what is the reason that you're leaving your current company? So I do my due diligence. I make sure that this customer that I'm getting, is this a customer that's willing to get life insurance for me? Even though they may not have a home right now, are they willing to have a conversation with me about life insurance? Are they willing to eventually, when they purchase a home policy, will they be able to call me to get a home quote versus going to a different company? So I think about all of these things. And although I'm a one-man's army right now, the future starts now. The future doesn't start 3 years from now. So I have to think about that as I'm building my business along the way.
Excellent, excellent. You all have been fabulous. Steve Bradley, Patience Noah, I got to tell you, you all are tremendous. And Ghazi, I'll turn to you because we're closing out. What advice would you give to Patience Noah? I know you all know each other, but and I'm going to ask Steve to say the same thing. You all are the old heads here in this conversation. What would you tell somebody emerging into the space?
I think first and foremost, I mean, you have to believe that if they're even getting into their space, they think they understand there's a potential and there's opportunity. But I do think, and the whole purpose of this particular webinar, this particular discussion is to your point about how do you measure it? How do you quantify it? Not just qualify it, right? Just quantify it.
Quantify it.
Track it and able to duplicate it, right? So to continue to be successful. So, the one thing that I find that, especially those of us that are getting, because I'm fairly new myself, at least on the agency side, but what I did learn about, how to create success in this business is how to utilize the data to help me, right? How to utilize the data to get to those, develop those strategies and get to those goals and those objectives that I'm trying to meet, not only tomorrow, but 5, 10, 20 years down the road, because I have 4 children. This is very much about legacy building for me. And so the whole reason I left corporate America is all about ownership. And I wanted to own something that I could pass down from generation to generation to generation. And what's unfortunate is that the view of the Black agent in the community has changed, right? I mean, to some of the references earlier on, historical references, they used to be a pillar in the community. I would like to get us back to that.
Back to that,
right?
absolutely.
Back to that, because I think if you utilize this role as it was intended, I think, that's just my belief, as it was intended, then we can help with the generational wealth gap. We can help with the racial wealth gap. We can help, bring our community back to where it used to be, where we were proud and we had an entrepreneurial spirit and we weren't afraid to own and take risk and really think about our community before we thought about ourselves. And so I think all those things are important when you get into this space of being an independent agent or being an agent in general. Just being opportunistic, being thoughtful about your goals and objectives, and being able to quantify, measure, track, and kill it.
I love it. Steve, you've got the last word here. We only got about a minute. So what's your advice to Patience NAAIA as she launches?
My advice to patients is, again, learn and value your history and tap into the resources of people that's been on the battlefield for a long time, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone or email somebody and just run a scenario by. But we have to learn to tap into our giants in our community and realize that we have a lot of wealth and experiences that we can make sure your firm is around for the next 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but also the mere fact that you contributed it to this third webinar for NAAIA's agency development and engagement initiative, led largely by Ngozi Naji and others who have put their minds to figuring out how we can do something different. I want to again go back to Cirillo McSween. 26 years in a row, he was a member of the $1 Million Roundtable in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, folks. If he could do it, and Maggie Lena Walker could do it, and William Washington Brown can do it, y'all can do it. I think we've got a phenomenal opportunity in front of us if we only tie on together, and I'm here with you. Ngozi, you've got the floor.
Ain't much more to say, brother. Thank you, everyone. And we will try to answer those questions that we weren't able to during the panel. But thank you so much. Stay tuned for our fourth webinar, the third Tuesday in September at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.